Another important element of perspective as we prepare to be used by God in the world is how we look at ministry and maturity and the relationship between the two. Ephesians chapter 4 defines this for us in verses 11 through 13. It says that Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors and teachers to equip his people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God and become mature. Now, the first myth about ministry that this speaks to is the idea that the pastor's job is to minister to me. That really the pastor's role is to spoon feed me, to care for me, to meet all of my needs spiritually. And this turns pastors into some kind of a spiritual pseudo-superhero, and it turns regular Christians into passive spectators. Biblically, we see here that the pastor's job is to equip God's people to minister to others, to prepare people for their own service, their own impact and influence, and to release them from the pews so that they're no longer merely passive spectators, but they're actively involved in God's mission in the world. And again, you can see this in Ephesians chapter 4. Let's take another look at that, where it says that at the end of verse 11, pastors and teachers are called to equip God's people for works of service, so that, it says, the body of Christ may then be built up, and the end of verse 13, may then become mature. There's another myth about ministry that speaks to here in Ephesians 4, and that's the myth that nobody should minister until he's mature. That people really need to get more mature first, that before you can really ever attempt to influence others, you're going to need another discipleship class, another training course, another leadership seminar. You're going to need to get more and more Bible knowledge before you can possibly be mature enough to serve others. Now, of course, I'm not against training and discipleship and Bible knowledge. Those are really important. But what we see here is that maturity comes as the result of serving. Maturity is more about acting by faith and caring about other people and being obedient to God than it is necessarily about having more knowledge or more training or more books or notebooks filled with ideas. So maturity is really developed through the process of serving. The way that you actually grow mature is by reaching out, by being available to God to obey Him. Now, we usually get this backwards because it says here in these verses that God's people are equipped to serve, and then the body of Christ grows mature. See, it's when you step out and start doing something that you have this huge impetus to really grow. Your growth then is not just some theoretical knowledge about God, but that's when you learn things that you really need to know because you have to answer someone's question. That's when you're tested or you're challenged and you have to exercise faith and perseverance. So maturity really comes through serving. So take a few minutes and talk about these discussion questions that explore this relationship between ministry and maturity.